Chicago style. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagofen. L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay. Can't see what? Good morning, Rabbi Sai. We are after 11:15 here in Chicago. It's late at night. There's an oilam that came out to learn Torah, even though it's tomorrow's daf. That needs to be muted over there, Yoel. We got Yoel running the show over here. He's instead of Gary, so we have Gary usually. Gary once in a while pipe in. Now we have Yoel. Shkoyach. Today's shir is being sponsored Lili Nishmas Imi Rus Bas Mordechai. We have two sponsors here. Sponsored by Yuval Kavosh in memory of Firdas Chaya Bat Esther Vichizkiah. Very Svardish thing. Here, Yoel, you can take this, or you can hold it up. Sponsor next year in honor of three special bubbies who, with their husbands, contributed so much to Yiddishkeit of Pittsburgh, Wilkes Barre, and Detroit. I don't know. Reading is not my strong thing. Miss Beverly Gross, Miss Rena Schoenfeld, Miss Razel Snow, on the birth of the great-grandson born to Baruch Leib and Nechama Gross. So official gets a mazel tov, in other words. And I saw something about, the Oilam was invited to a Shalom Zachar at the MDY Siyum headquarters. It's a walk through Shalom Zachar in Baltimore. The Oilam was invited. A little brother to Chai Basi and Esther, and another golden dove. Oh, yeah, this must be from Fischl. For Yaakov and Jody Herber, Fischl, and Sarah Lee Gross. All right, you ready? Here. It's a lot. I don't know if you're going to be able to read this all. It's one of those things. Okay. Shkoyach, here, you got this. Rabbi Isai, we have an amazing daf today. Today's daf Mem Zayin. We are joined by Andrew Glatz. Oh, where's Jay Freeman? They forgot to tell Jay Freeman where it is again? Or it's too late for him? Moshe Tzvi Dauber, where is he?
Oh, he won't come.
Yeah, it's too late for him. Okay. I got to tell you like this, just real quickly. A Ma'aseh Shekamat Haya. We were very excited to get away from Eretz Yisrael just for one reason. I mean, Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael. But you all know that we have a dog for therapeutic reasons for my son, and it became like a little bit of a nuisance. It's my son's dog, but it turned into ours because he went to yeshiva. And now it's by Doron Kornbluth. I see, here I doing, Doron Yishkoyach. So we're excited to get away from him, not from Eretz Yisrael. So we get to Eretz Yisrael, we get to America, we get to Chicago, we open up the door, and a tiny leopard meets us at the door, immediately jumps on me, rips my shirt, scratches me, bites my thing. Now, this thing is the size of a cat now. It's a baby, it's the size of a cat. It's called a Savannah. You can look it up. It's a descendant of a serval. It's F6. It's not too big, but it's vicious. It actually chased my son-in-law who's here tonight. It's a wild animal. It's a wilde chaya. It wants to play. It wants to have fun, but it doesn't know how to do it without destroying your skin. So my two sons were very excited to meet it. They played with him. Within 2-3 minutes, they were both crying. I'm not exaggerating. Cuts, bruises. It's insane. So Ma'aseh Shahaya Kachaya. I come home last night from the shir at close to 1 o'clock in the morning, and I see my 14-year-old son shaking, literally shaking. He's upset. I said, "What happened?" He says he walked out. The thing attacked him again, scratched him up again. And you talk to my older son. He's 25. He's the owner of this cat. He bought it. He was born in Florida. He bought it and he brought it here without, we didn't chop exactly the matzav. So I calmed him down. I said, just go to your room. You can't wake up the whole place. And he's like, no, it's terrible. And he goes into his room and he slams the door shut. 20 seconds later, he comes flying out of the room. He didn't realize that the cat snuck into his bed. So he went into his bed. I can't make this thing up. It's like this mini leopard is living in our house, so we're about to leave, but he promises by tomorrow everything's going to be taken care of somehow. I don't know, he's going to cut his things, whatever. Okay, anyway, so that's the mice I have to tell you about Chicago. They're very welcoming with the wine, with the leopards, with all the different, bring it back to the safari. All right, Zok Eli Gemara. So we're in the middle of this sugya discussing when you have machlokes in between different tanoim, who do you pass like? So yesterday we had this, if you remember. Rabbi Yossi is on top. Rabbi Yossi, if he argues with Rabbi Yehuda, he wins, green. If Rabbi Yehuda argues with Rameir, Rabbi Yehuda wins. And if Rabbi Yehuda argues with Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda wins. In other words, Rabbi Yossi, for sure, if he argues with Rameir, he wins. Because he beats Rabbi Yehuda, so certainly he beats Rameir and Rabbi Shimon. Comes to Rabbi Misharish, he says, not so. It's not a fact. Brings a raya, we were doich the raya. So now we're holding. What?
Where did Rabbi Akiva fit?
Oh, we had the Rabbi Kiva is yesterday. We had Rabbi Kiva. We passing like Rabbi Kiva when it's against his friends. Rabbi Kiva Mechaberov doesn't fit into this chart so much, but it fits into the general thing. We're going to see soon. We know the famous Rabbi Yochanan, who's the Galadar from Eretz Yisrael, and the famous Rav Galadar in Bavel. When they argue, who beats who? Anybody know? What do you guys say? All right. What? No. You think Bavel and it's Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan beats Bavel. By the way, I have to mention this. It's very, very important. The Leon Welcher from South Africa is a great friend of the Shir, and he met me in South Africa talking about safari. He met me in South Africa, was on a safari. He met me in a restaurant there. He walked over to me out of the blue. He says, I hear you have a Shir. I want to develop the app for you. He developed the app, and he became a big fan of the Shir, and people that work for him, etc. The second version of the app just came out this week. There's thousands of people on the app, but only a couple hundred upgraded. So Rabbi say, upgrade your app. There's a lot of new features, a lot of great stuff, and we have a tremendous akar satayv to Leon for that. I also want to say real quickly, in the Beis Medrash, if you look, there's the MDY picture right there of the Beis Medrash. You can see there's a brand new, full Shanstein. It's called Shanstein Eretz Yisrael. It's the art scroll, is Hebrew Shas, donated by Israel Davis. So tremendous yishkach to Israel Davis. Still sponsorships available for the English Shas, for the Mesifta, etc. But now we're starting to fill up with Sfarim Baruch Hashem. So thank you very much, Azriel. If you look on your screens, you'll see, Rabbi, you got to be Shalom Aleichem, Glok. There's more people in the Beis Medrash. No, it's not bad. There's a little bit more than a million here. Great. Okay, we like it like that. COVID, we like to Shalom Aleichem, Yeshua. How you doing? Live from Bet Shemesh. All right, let's get to the learning here. Elamaha. 4 lines from the top of Mem Zayin Amud Aleph. Easy stuff today. So Reb Misharish proves his idea that we don't have a real rule when it comes to who do we paskin like the Snan. It says in the Mishnah, if somebody leaves his house and he leaves his chutzner to his buddy. So again, we're just going to try to recycle as many of these charts as we can because my printer's not up and running. Gary's in Eretz Yisrael. Now it is actually, but I don't know how to use my my printer to print small pages. From the other generation. Fine. Here's the chutzner. Ignore these. You have 2 houses per chutzner. Here's the grass, the green grass, and 2 houses. One of these guys disappears. Now, if he's there for Shabbos, you have to make a Eruv Chatzeres, because each guy prevents the other guy from carrying. But if he goes away on vacation, you can use the chutzner, because he's not there. There's nobody there to prevent you. He left, he went. Whether it's a guy or a Jew, oiser, it's no good. Divrei Rabbi Meir. So we have a plague is Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda oimer, ein oiser. So right now, as we speak, we have Rabbi Meir says you can't carry there. We have Rabbi Yehuda says you could carry. Who do you paskin like? Rabbi Yehuda's on top. Rabbi Yossi oimer, nachri oiser Yisrael. Now we have Rabbi Yossi. Interesting. We have all 3 of them in this one case. Comes Rabbi Yossi says, well, it depends. We'll make a compromise here. Nachri Yoiser, Yisrael ein Yoiser. A guy makes it's not good if he goes on a vacation. Why? Because a guy could travel on Shabbos, so even if he's on vacation, he could suddenly show up on Shabbos, he'll ruin it for you. Yisrael ein Yoiser, v'nei shein derech Yisrael lo b'Shabbos. A Jew doesn't travel on Shabbos. Reb Shimon Oimer, now Reb Shimon's all the way in the bottom over here, together with Reb Meir. Comes Reb Shimon, and he says, now, if we paskin now without looking inside, if we paskin like Reb Shimon, do we have a problem? A very big problem, because Reb Shimon is on the bottom. First of all, Reb Yehuda beats Reb Shimon, and second of all, Reb Yossi beats them all. So what does it say here? Reb Shimon oimer afilu hiniach is beis v'alach lishbos etzel bitoy if he goes to his own daughter, in the same city. We're talking about a guy that leaves city. He leaves town. He says even within the same city, he's in West Rogers Park. We have to talk now Chicago language. He leaves his chutzner in West Rogers Park, goes down a few blocks to another block where his daughter lives. So it's a tremendous chiddush. Shalom Aleichem, David Dimbert from Highland Park. Says the Gemara. So it's a big problem because now Reb Shimon argues on everybody, and he says you don't have to go to another city. Says Rav, halacha Reb Shimon. The halacha is like Reb Shimon on the bottom over here. Reb Shimon is always supposed to be the last one in line. You go like Reb Yehuda, and over here we have Reb Yehuda and Reb Yosi, and we don't listen to Reb Yehuda and Reb Yosi. You go like Reb Shimon. Problem. Uman Palgalei, Reb Yehuda. Rashi points out it's also Reb Yosi. V'amr Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon halacha Reb Yehuda. You don't even have to go to Reb Yosi. Even one step below Reb Yosi, Reb Yehuda argues with Reb Shimon. The halacha should be like Reb Yehuda in another city. So, says Reb Misharsha, from here you see that these rules aren't exact. Sometimes we go by them, sometimes we don't, so you can't make a general rule. So we're going to say the same answer we said yesterday. If we say specifically the halacha is like Reb Shimon, great, then the halacha is Reb Shimon. But when we don't know who the halacha is like, then we have to take out this chart and see who's on top. If it wouldn't say that the halacha is like Reb Shimon, then we would say the halacha is like Reb Yehuda or like Reb Yosi, not like Reb Shimon. That's the answer we had yesterday. So, as I mentioned yesterday, because we're trying to prove, for those who just showed up, we had general rules. How do we paskin in an entire shas? You should remember, Eruvin Daf Vav tells us, if you have a machlokes, Rabbi Yosi beats out Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda beats out Rabbi Meir Reb Shimon, therefore Rabbi Yosi beats out Rabbi Meir Reb Shimon as well. Who beats who, Rabbi Meir or Reb Shimon, if they argue, then the same plane over here, Teiku, we don't know, Rabbi Kiva beats his friends, etc. We're trying to prove that maybe this idea is not 100% accurate, and therefore it's going to take us on a ride through Shas, through many different sugyas. So, to understand the sugya deep is not as important as just to see the actual idea that you see that sometimes we paskin like the underdog. Ani is a poor person. Now, poor person in Shas doesn't mean literally you're going to his bank account and see how much he has. But on the spot, when a guy is traveling, he's a poor person because he doesn't have anything with him. What good is it if he has a credit card, he's in the middle of the desert, and he doesn't have food? So a person who doesn't have food, to make an Eruv, ma'ariv biraglov. So this we had the idea that a person makes an Eruv with his feet, meaning with his own body. What better way to decide that a certain place is his residence than by being there? It's a lot better than having shalom over there or a challah. So, A tent. I never. No. That's okay. A tent is a house then. If you have a house, you have a house. No. Only a person who doesn't have bread. Even a person who has bread with him could make an eruv without bread. Just saying, hey, I am here, this is my residence. And therefore, what is he doing? He's shifting over his tchum to the new place. He lives over here. Now he moves away to another place. He takes up new residence, 2,000 amas away from his place, and now has another extended 2,000 amas from there.
Like an usher that's traveling, is allowed to take nicer? Same idea?
No, not the same idea. That's an idea that a person could become poor at any given time. That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying is that to make an eruv with your body is just as good as making an eruv with bread. Not that you are poor. You don't need to be poor, is what we're saying. Here's the line. The reason why they say you could use bread is to tell you that you don't need to go out there. If you're a wealthy guy, you could send your shaliach. Oh, I mentioned last night, or when was it? Noam Fix, who helps us tremendously in Ramat Bet Shemesh with the shir. He's a big shir guy. And once a year he goes to America to make a little parnasa. We have Simcha Sussman who goes, he's a beautiful voice from Shalshelas. He goes and he's a chazan during Yomi Eruvin. And he goes and he sells a sroigim. I said, no, maybe the Ilma will support him. So a guy shows up today, sends a shliach, a chauffeur, and he bought 3 esrogim for $1,000 from him. It's unbelievable. Ken Yirbu. He's in Queens somewhere. I don't know the address, but hey.
61-36 Main Street.
What is it? 61 dash what? Again?
71-36 Main Street.
He's on. He's on. It's how to get out. I can't believe you're on. 71 dash 36 Main Street. I seriously didn't know you were on because I know you work so hard and it's very difficult for you to grab a Gemara, but I'm very happy that you're on. Wow. Okay, if I knew you were on, I probably wouldn't have said over the story. And I wouldn't have said the amount either. His esrogim are not expensive. The guy just said, here, give me 3 esrogim for $1,000. Anyways, fine. I also bought one from him. I hope it's not the same price. No, I'm hook up a brother. Anyways, fine. So you could send a shliach. This guy sent a shliach to buy esrogim. You could send your shliach and say, put down a challah roll. Why should the wealthy guy that could afford a chauffeur go all the way out into the desert and say, hey, this is my residence, and then walk back home in the 120-degree heat? You could send somebody out. So it's a kula. But obviously, if you want to put your feet there, of course it's going to work, says the Gemara. So you don't have to be poor. Even a wealthy person could use himself or a challah, says Rabbi Yehuda. Now, when Rabbi Yehuda argues with Rabbi Meir, the halacha is like, here we go, chart. Rabbi Yehuda on top, beats Rabbi Meir, beats Rabbi Shimon. Umasni le Reb Chia bar Ashi l'Chia bar Rav kamei Rav. Rav Chia, the son of Ashi, Rav Ashi, taught Chia, the son of Rav, kamei Rav. Remember, we had Rav Chia, the son of Rav, a number of times where Rav Yehuda was teaching Chia, the son of Rav, and Rav was passing by. We had it even in the Masechta a couple of times. He passed by, said, "That's not the way to teach him. I held differently. You have to read the Mishnah differently." Anyway, so this Chia bar Rav, kamei, they were talking in front of Rav. Echad ani ve'echad ashir. You could be wealthy and you could make an eruv with your feet. I want you to finish it off, top it off, by quoting this quote, halacha like Rabbi Yehuda. So the question is, asked the Gemara, if we have this sheet in front of us, that the halacha is always like Rabbi Yehuda when he argues with the Meir, then why does Rav have to finish it off like that? It's obvious. We have a famous rule in the Gemara, Eruv and Daf Vav, the halacha is always like Rabbi Yehuda. Why does he have to say the halacha? This tells me something. This tells me that typically the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. That's why he has to finish it off like that. You told me there's a rule. Anytime there's an argument between the Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, the famous duo, Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Says Gemara my kushya dilma Rav leis leilahane klale. No, Rav doesn't hold of this. Who does hold of it? Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rashi, if you look at Rashi, Rashi says that when we have the argument between the famous Rabbi Yochanan, the Gadol Adar in Eretz Yisrael, and the Gadol Adar in Bavel, who lived in the same exact generation, the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan. It's unbelievable. Right? Who's Rav? Rav Tanu Polig. He's the last. He's the first Amoira, but he's considered like a Tana. He could argue with Tanoim because he lived a little bit in that generation. But the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan. Elamaha, another sugya. So this is taking us, I'm telling you, like we're going from here to there. You come to one daf, you can learn many, many different concepts in Shas. This is the idea of if a person, Rahman al-Islan, dies without children. I think I mentioned this, you know him. Miriam Pearl's husband. So we have a cousin who married somebody who did Yibum. His younger brother was nifter like a year after the wedding. So he didn't do Yibum, he did Chalitza. Sorry, there's no Yibum today. It applies today as well. You have to do Chalitza at least. So if a man dies without children, the brother has to marry that woman. So to have to have lahakim shem lachiv. Should be a continuation for the brother. Now it says the halacha is she cannot marry or do chalitza ad sheyula shloisha chadashim. You have to wait 3 months because maybe perhaps she's pregnant from her husband that died, and if she's in fact pregnant, then it's usher for her to marry her brother-in-law. A brother-in-law is usher. It's only a one-time concept of when there's no children. Oh, so chalitza is also a problem. Yosef is asking, why is it a problem? So Rashi explains the problem, and we don't want to confuse it. And people, the issue is, it definitely doesn't work if she has a child. But if she doesn't have a child, you have to do it again. Bekitzer, it's one of these exeris. V'savar shor chalutza l'kayin. It's going to create issues. All right. So echad psulis v'echad bulois. Again, we're not going deep into the sugya. We have to see the sugya from the top. We'll fly through it, and again, the kasha is, how do we paskin like the one that we think we shouldn't be paskin like, the one on the bottom? Yeah.
Can a kohen marry someone who has a chalitza?
No. Chalitza is like a get. Oh, sorry. V'chol shar noshim, v'chein shar kol anoshim, and every other woman in the world. Lo yinosu, they can't get married. V'lo yisarsu, they can't get engaged. Engaged, the Gemara type of engagement, not like what we have today. It's a serious commitment. It's erisin. She's considered a shesish. Achi yulan shloisha chadashim. Echad psulois ve'echad buulois, echad almanois ve'echad grushois. So it doesn't matter if you are coming off a divorce or lost your husband, whether you're a virgin or not, whether you were engaged, not engaged, married, not, you have to wait. You could get engaged if you were married, and if you were engaged, you could get married. Because we're not, what's the idea? We're not concerned that somebody that's engaged is pregnant. Chutz, Marusa should be Yehuda. I don't want to say anything about how we do things today, but in Yehuda, where they allowed the chassan and kala to be together in yichud, that's a problem. We have to be choshid, perhaps she's pregnant, and therefore she can't get married right away. She has to wait 3 months. Mepnei sheli begaspa. Rabbi Yosi oimer kol anoshim yisarsu chutz min an almana mepnei ha'ibul. Only an almana has to wait the 3 months for she has to mourn her loss. She can't get married. V'amri Rabbi Lazar lo yola be'ben drasha. Rabbi Lazar didn't go to the base of Medrash Chayler Rabasi Davakaim. So he bumped into Rabasi. Amalei, my own Rabbi Drasha. What did I miss out today? Amalei Acham Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan said. Halacha ki Rabbi Yosi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yosi. What does that mean? Mechlal di chidah play lo galei. If the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, that means that he was only arguing. Rabbi Yosi says anybody could get married. You have to wait the 3 months. That means that he's arguing on an individual, because Rabbi Yochanan wouldn't paskin like an individual against the rabbin. So he's arguing it was a 1-on-1, and Rabbi Yochanan won. Rabbi Yochanan says that Rabbi Yosi won. Now, in, yes. Vatanya and says, the reason why I'm in Chicago is because of this one line here. If a woman was chased to go to her parents' house, it means in her mind. Somebody wants to, like, dying to go to her parents. She's constantly at her parents' house.
He's not here.
What?
The habit of going to her brother's house.
Yeah, she's always there. In other words, she's there for extended time. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm in Eretz Yisrael. I hope my Shor is not watching. Constantly there, Yom V'Layla in the house. It's a great place to be. She had a little bit of a fight with her husband. Basically, they separated. In other words, we're going through a list of women that's impossible that they got pregnant in the last 3 months. Or her husband was old, was sick, or maybe she was sick akara. She cannot have children. She can't conceive. How do we know? Because she was married 3 times to 3 different men. She never conceived. Zkena, or she's an older woman, Ketana, too young, violinist, or naturally she can't have children, she has the simanim of an islandess. Then she can't have children, it's a little different. She took some sort of medicine that she can't have children. Or physically, her husband is locked away. Her husband died, and then she has a miscarriage. It's impossible that she is pregnant. She must wait 3 months, even though we know for a fact she's not pregnant. Divrei Rebbe Meir.
Miscarried Araya, maybe she had twins.
I thought about that also. Okay, so today you have a ultrasound. So anyway, Rebbe Meir says no matter what, you have to wait. Now, in other words, Rebbe Meir is the one that argues on Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says no one has to wait. And Rebbe Meir says everybody has to wait, even people that we know for a fact are not pregnant. And he's an individual. Rabbi Yossi, Mater, Li'oris, now we have a little bit of a problem, okay? Because now we know it's Rebbe Meir that argues over here, and Rabbi Yochanan paskin like Rabbi Yossi. And guess what? They're both on this list. Rabbi Yossi is on the top, Rebbe Meir is on the bottom. Rebbe Meir argues with Rabbi Yossi. Comes Rabbi Yochanan and says, oh, halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, Mater, Li'oris, Miyad. Lomali. Why do I need to say this? Anytime there's an argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, halacha Rabbi Yossi. Oh, my koshia. I have another reason that Rabbi Misharsha shouldn't prove from here that this list is no good. Perhaps it's to be mitzvah that we shouldn't think the halacha like what Rabbi Nachman or Shmuel says. The Omar halacha Rabbi Meir big zera. When there's a gzeira, like in our case, we have to be geyser. Everybody knows she's not pregnant, but nevertheless we have to make a gzeira. So therefore, the halacha is like, not like Rabbi Meir. He's saying, Rabbi Yochanan comes along and says, no, even in this case, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, not like Rabbi Meir. I would think the halacha is like Rabbi Meir because we have a rule, another rule, not by Rabbi Yochanan, a rule by Rav Nachman or Shmuel, Shmuel's rule. Doesn't go by that rule. Elamaha. Okay, another halacha. You're allowed to purchase things from Goyim. There's a whole, the Masechtas Avodah Zarah talks about purchasing from a guy before his Yontif, not before his Yontif. He's going to thank his gods or whatever. You're allowed to purchase from a guy. You're allowed to purchase slaves, houses, fields. In Eretz Yisrael, of course, because you want to. There's a whole organization, right, that goes around buying houses from the Goyim. But even in Chutz La'aretz, to lessen their hold and their influence, now this is a chiddush that I could go to their courts, even though by going to their courts, I am giving them a lot of honor, and I'm telling them, hey, I believe in you guys, and I might go after their ways or whatever. I'm allowed to go to their courts. We're not talking about like an American, the American system, or we're talking about a real pagan, like Avodah Zarah in the courts. It's a serious. Nevertheless, you can go into these places, because you're saving your property. The only way to make it official is by going into the court and to document it. So you're saving your property. So therefore, you're allowed to go in there. Where does it mention anywhere in Shas the 8 minute daf? Nowhere. Okay, I just wanted you to. And the same way, Chutz La'aretz has a certain tumah to it. We consider Chutz La'aretz tameh. You don't know where anybody's buried over there. So a kohen could walk into Chutz La'aretz, Lodin Ulari Moim, if he has a court case, he could go again to retrieve his property. Just like we allow a kohen to go into America, Chutz La'aretz, so he could also go into a cemetery. Basic Kvaras, you allow a kohen could go into a cemetery. Cemetery is 100% tumah. Tumah deraisi, it's midaraisa. Ella, the Beis HaPras. Beis HaPras, if you remember, this is the field that was plowed over. So there might be fragments of bone. We're not sure. It's one of these sfeikas. And here's the hole. You have 100 am in each direction. So it's only the Rabbana. Beis HaPras the Rabbana. Different Beis HaPras. This is the Beis HaPras the Rabbana. Umetama Lisa Isha. Now, Kohen could also go into Chutz La'aretz to marry a woman. There's a great shidduch. You go to America for a shidduch, v'lilmod Torah, and to study Torah. Or Rabbi Yehuda Emasai b'zman she'im moitza lilmod. So here we have machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda on the one hand says, when are you allowed to go to Chutz La'aretz to learn? She'im moitza lilmod. You don't have anybody to learn from. You're not comfortable in any of these shivas in Israel. Aval moitza lilmod lo yitama. If he has a good yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, you don't go to America. Comes Rabbi Yosi, and again, once again, when we have an argument between Rabbi Yosi and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosi beats him out. Even when he has a great yeshiva, he could go learn Torah. Why? Lefi she'ein min hakol zoicha adam lilmoid. Not everybody's the same. Not every yeshiva is the same. Not every place is the same. Not every rebbe is the same. Now Rashi says over here, top Rashi, Ein Adam Zoich Lumit Mikol Talmidov, Daf Mem Zayin Amud Beis, Yesh Rav Shemishnasai Zdur Bepiv. There's a rebbe that teaches you very concise Vishoinel Talmidov Derech Tzara. There are rabbanim that teach you in 8 minutes the entire daf. If you could teach somebody in a very concise derech tzara, that's great. So you got to go all the way to wherever that rebbe is. Today it's online. You go over there. So we just turned to that Mem Zayin Amud Beis, sponsored by Mark Steinberg, a shidduch v'san. Today in the morning, I was woken up by a phone call, and this guy's sending me resumes, and he needs to talk about this bacher. So Be'ezer Hashem, we're going to get something going here. Shidduch for his son, Yitzchok Pesach Yehuda ben Meir Yosef. And by anonymous, Hatzlacha in Yiddishkeit and his chus for his family to be Torah Jews. There was a story with Yosef who was a Kohen, and he went all the way to Chutz La'aretz, decided to learn Torah. Comes Rabbi Yochanan and says, you should know that Allah is like Rabbi Yosi, that you're allowed to go learn Torah in Chutz La'aretz no matter what. Even if you have a good yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, there might be something even better in Chutz La'aretz. So what's the question? Lamali, why does he have to say so? We know, everybody knows the rules. Here are the rules. The rules are, Rabbi Yosi always beats Rabbi Yehuda, and he's arguing with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosi, Lamali, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosi. I would think this idea and the rules only apply to a Mishnah. But in a Brisa not, Kamash Milan, these rules apply in a Brisa and a Mishnah according to Rabbi Yochanan. So why is Reb Misharish arguing on this whole thing? Not everybody agrees to that. We already established a few minutes ago when we have Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, who's the halacha like Rabbi Yochanan? Because Rav doesn't hold of these rules. And Memela, that's what Rav Misharish was trying to tell us. These rules are not according to every single person. We have Rav, who's very chashav. Yes, we pass like Rabbi Yochanan, so these rules do apply to Shas. And when we say it applies to Shas, we had a three machlekes what that means. Either we paskin in public like this, if we don't know, or we paskin to an individual, or if an individual does it, then we don't tell him to take it back. But we certainly don't tell an individual, according to that shita, to paskin like that. We don't paskin based on this list. But it's good information to know. So now anytime we see Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir, we have a better idea of what's going on. Who has more power? Now we understand where the Shulchan Aruch comes from. When the Shulchan Aruch paskins, see it in Gemara, you have a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rav. We know why the Shulchan Aruch says like this. Now we know why the Shulchan Aruch passes like Rabbi Yehuda or passes like Rabbi Yosef, because of this daf right here in Eruvin. A little thirsty. No, I'm fixed. There's only one here that knows why I drank a lot before I came to Shir. Let's just continue. Zok the Gemara. Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel. Chavtzei Nachri ein koidim shvisa. So this is very interesting. we spoke about a computer, an apple, a watermelon. Do they have a tchum? Do they have shvisa? In other words, do we look at this object and say this object only could go 2,000 amas in each direction? Or do we look at the individual that's carrying the object or owns the object, and we say that individual, he could go more than 2,000 amas because he made his Eruv, he established his residence 2,000 amas away from the object. So this object could go to 2,000 amas to the residence, and from the residence take another 2,000 amas to the other direction. Sorry, I was out of focus, out of screen. Okay. Anyways, here's the object, and here's the residence. So this object could go to the residence and continue on 2,000 amas from there. Or no, the object is its own, like an individual that takes up residence. So now it's only 2,000 amas in each direction. Now it goes by the owner. We need to understand it always goes by the person that owns it. But what about if a guy owns it? We discussed yesterday, hefker. There is no owner. There's no owner. So where do we establish the tchum by an object that's not owned by anybody? What about an object that's owned by a guy? Chesed Nachri. So this is Shmuel, Rav's contemporary, sort of. That's another thing that we saw, that Shmuel wasn't really maybe at the same level as Rav, but Rav killed his daughter, who was it? And then he had charata, so he was mechaber him. What was it? Anyway, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Chesed Nachri ein kohen shvisa. They're not kohen shvisa. In other words, they don't have 2,000 amas from where they are. You just take up, whoever picks it up takes over. Leman, according to who's this halacha going according to? Eli Rabbanon. So remember, we had a whole argument between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and Rabbanon about a sleeping individual. Guy that's sleeping, does he take up residence where he's at? He had no intent to do so. And then we said, well, the same halacha applies to an object. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that it takes a sleeping person has 2,000 amas in each direction. He's not limited to his 4 amas. And so to an object. Now who does it go according to? Eli Rabbananu arguing Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri say no, an object only has 4 amas. Pshita. If the object is complete hefker, doesn't have an owner at all, ein kohen shvisa, it doesn't have a tchum, didn't take up any residence. So if a guy owns it should be even worse. So obviously this is going according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that an object does have 2,000 amas. When does Rabbi Yochanan say this idea that an object has 2,000 amas? When there's no owner at all? The guy himself doesn't have tchum. So how would his object have a tchum? He's the owner of the object, and he himself doesn't have tchum. So therefore, his object doesn't have tchum. So if I go and I take something from a guy, then the object, he lends me something. I go to his house. I say, could you lend me a bottle of water? So now the bottle of water goes to where I go. If I have 4,000 amas from that point, because I made an Eruv 2,000 amas away from the guy's house, so now the bottle goes with me. It's not limited to the guy's property. But if the guy has a tchum, the guy doesn't have a tchum, but if his objects have a tchum, so then this bottle of water is limited to 2,000 amas from the guy's house. So that's why Shmuel says that an object of a guy does not have shvisa, and therefore it goes wherever the Jew takes it. Meisvei, if you borrow any kind of vessel from a guy on Yontif, and the guy gave it back to him on Yontif, and if you have any kind of kli or storage that was within the tchum, it says over here that it does have 2,000 amas to each direction. In other words, it has its own shvisa. The kli does have a shvisa. You're telling me that a kli of a guy doesn't have 2,000 amas. It's wherever whoever takes it. But over here it says it has alpayim amal l'chol ruach. You treat it as if it's a human being and it has 2,000 amas to each direction. And if a guy brings something from outside of the tchum, it's already, it busted its tchum. If you tell me, goes that Rabbi Yochanan holds that a guy, his objects do have a tchum, they're kind of their place, they have a residence, so to speak, then it fits in great. But if he holds that he does not, that the objects don't have a place, then we don't have any shita. Who does it go according to? Says the Gemara, you're right. Therefore we must retract. Let's take this back. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds that a goyisha object does have 2,000 amas. Ushmuel, the Amar Bonon. However, Shmuel, who says a goyish object doesn't, it has to say that it goes with the Rabbanan that argue. But you asked me a question, you said that can't be. You said a whole kavachomer. If Hefker doesn't, so certainly a guy. No, Mao the same Xer Baalam the Nochri Oto Baalam the Yisrael. Kamash Mulam. I do have to tell you this idea because it's not so pashut. Why? Because somebody should check the Zoom. Gary, check Zoom if we are limited to 100 people. Well, for whatever reason, we're at 100. What kind of business is this? I thought we were limited at 500. Anyway, no, I'm missing those days that we had 150, 200 people, whatever. It's getting a little schwach. Fine. More people on Torah anytime, I guess. So, on the new app, don't forget the new app, Rabbi site. Upgrade your app. Says the Gemara, yeah, it's going to send you a message. You have to put in a code. It works. I'm telling you. The first time I thought it doesn't, but you do it, it'll work. Mao the same Xera Bailam the Nochri Oto Bailam the Yisrael Kamash Malon. So you have to be concerned there. You have to make Xera. Why? I would think you have to make Xera. Because people are going to confuse the object. They say, look, that object doesn't have a tchum. And now, so then the object by the Jew also shouldn't have a tchum. Kamash Malon. So in other words, everybody holds that something owned by a non-Jew has a place. You could go 2,000 amas in each direction. This you could take the object 2,000 in each direction. It doesn't go by whoever picks up the object and takes it. Yes, you have to be concerned that people will confuse this with a Jewish object. You have to say, hey, all objects are the same. So where's the machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and Chachamim? The machlokes will be in an object that doesn't have any ownership at all. Where Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says it's kind of shvisa, and Chachamim say no, you only have 4 amas. Says the Gemara story, and with this we're going to finish. Hanu dichrei da asu the Mavrachta. There's a place called Mavrachta, and a bunch of rams, small animals came there. Now, they came from out of the Tchum. They came over 2,000 amas. Shal Rava levnei Mechayza lemizbeh menai. Now, there was an Eruv between Mechayza and Mavrachta, because it wasn't more than 4,000 amas. They put an Eruv Tchum in the middle, and you're allowed to go from one city to the other. So he said, this is on Yontif. Listen to this. We had this already. It's a pretty nice chiddush. We probably would be more machmer than this. But you could buy these animals on Yontif. What are you going to do with them? You're going to shech them. Only on Yontif. You can't shech on Shabbos. How are you going to buy an animal on Yontif? You don't have cash. So you're going to do a deal. Like you tell the guy, listen, after Yontif, wink, wink, and I'll give you some money. Everything's okay. Great. Why do you tell them they're allowed to carry? They're allowed to buy this and schlep the animal all the way home and shecht it. You're probably thinking, you're probably thinking that this is a non-Jewish object, and therefore it doesn't have any shvisa, and whoever grabs it, like the Jew, it could go to the Jewish home because it becomes a Jewish object now. Now we have another added to the list. We have Rabbi Yochanan and Rav, the halacha is Rabbi Yochanan. Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, I would say this is almost like a kavachomer. If you ask me, I would know this halacha probably, based on what we just said before. The Rav was probably greater than Shmuel. Just Rav gave a lot of covet to Shmuel, even though Shmuel's younger and not as. It seems like from the Gemara that Rav was greater. So if the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, when there's an argument between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, so certainly Rabbi Yochanan and Shmuel. What?
We gotta go.
I know. We're 1 minute. We're almost done. Oh, by the way, Rabbi Isai, tomorrow morning here in Chicago, I'm giving a shir at 11:15. I know it means nothing to you guys in Eretz Yisrael. It's already Shabbos. However, that shir will be broadcasted on Motzei Shabbos in Eretz Yisrael. It will be on YouTube, and we'll broadcast it in the Beis Medrash. Whoever wants to come to the Beis Medrash and MDY. So tomorrow here at 11:15, as long as Yosef shows up, I'm good. And you too, Yo. I don't know if you have school. So sorry. So they are kind of shvisa. Therefore, you can't just carry it. You can't just bring it. It's a problem. How could a Jew bring it home? The animal should be stuck right there in its Dalet Ames because the guy brought it from somewhere else. Once the guy busts this object's tchum, now the object is stuck. You can't move the object more than 4 amas. So you're right. Rava retracted and he said, you know what? This is the pshat. They could sell it to people of Mavrachta. The kul Mavrachta they do, karba amas tamio. We had the halacha of Gamliel. Remember this halacha? If a guy picks up a Jew and puts him into a barn, an enclosure called a deer or a sar, then that entire enclosure is considered 4 amas. And Memela, the Jew could walk around in the entire thing, even if it's 5,000 feet. So too, the entire Mavrachta, which is enclosed with a wall, is considered 4 amas, and you could take the animal from place to place in that walled city. Rabbi Isai, have a wonderful Shabbos if you're in Eretz Yisrael. Have a wonderful evening here in Chicago. Have a wonderful day in Eretz Yisrael. And we'll see you all. Noam, if you want, you can say Tehillim. What about you, Ben Schwartz, in Farakwe? I can't hear. Here, unmute. But somebody should say Tehillim, I think.
I think Yoel should say Dylan.
Which child will be at a function over that?
What?
Say Dylan. Have Ben say Dylan.
Yo, you want to say the Tehillim? No, he doesn't want to say Tehillim.
He's on vacation.
No, he's on vacation. Okay. Yeah, but say it over here next to the microphone. Shem Alis Ben Mamakim Kusicha Adinoi.
Adonai Shema v'kalit, yanazna kashuvas kol tachnuna. Yema vanes tishmaya, Adonai miyamai. Ki imcha slicha l'man tevarech. V'yis Adonai givson nashil v'aychalti. Nashil Adonai misham l'abeke, shem l'abeke. Yacha Yisrael Adonai yamanai chassid alei my fitus. V'yivdei Yisrael mekal menay